I guess that, and I did tell them the only thing that really ticks me off is that our city manager, tried to essentially act as if he was the end all be all with that process. And that's not how it works. And so, as much as it pains me at times I don't want to punish them because of his lack of understanding how NRP works. So, I did also have a meeting with Mickey, who found out some of the approving authorities on NRP, and she had spoken with them to kind of let them know the situation. And I think we can still possibly move forward with submitting it to the state as such. I do have contact information from him. I was thinking between me and Betsy could sit down sometime this week and probably give him a call and figure that out, if it's all right with the commission. I just wanted to put that out.
Well, I want to find a resolution. I don't know if, it says that we're live, so I think they can hear us, they just can't see us.
Well, that's better than that.
Yeah, it's better than nothing, I don't know. And it says at least one person's watching, so. No, I think that, seeing if we can figure out, a resolution that's a win-win for all. And so, yeah, I don't have a problem with you and Betsy getting together on that.
The other thing that came out of that meeting when they filled out that paperwork, and we had discussed that previously, they filled it out with intentions of a 10-year NRP.
Because they had the wrong application.
And they were told it was a 10-year
Yeah.
option. So, I'm not sure how that works with us approving a 5-year, if there's something that we need to amend, if it's something that can be amended, what the steps are.
I think it's something that can be amended.
I think if we can move forward with the NRP process and have the historical data.
It doesn't have to be an NRP process, though. I mean,
I'm talking about as acting, sending it to the state, having the state approve it. That's what I'm talking about, so.
But I mean, this particular, project does not have to be an NRP, we have other options.
Yep, development agreement or something, so.
But I definitely feel that, this was not handled correctly.
Oh, it's handled poorly.
Yes.
So, I mean, say what it is.
Yeah.
This is, I think I get more agitated because everybody knew. We knew that we're gonna have a new business, and we knew that we had an expired NRP. We worked our tails off, not just this commission, but our employees worked their tails off to get a new map, to get all the language, to make sure that we were crossing every step along the way, checking it off, and for one individual to essentially forego the process and potentially ruin, incentives for this project it's nerve-wracking.
Well, it's not just nerve-wracking, it's just poor management.
And the fact that they've taken no responsibility, I think that's where it's.
Well, the other city commissioners didn't know.
Hey, I'm not even talking about the city commissioners. I'm talking about our city manager needs to take responsibility and own it. So because it's not a good look. It's not a good look for other projects that may want to come in and possibly put some here in our community. It's not a good look when we were talking about with RHID because now everybody's looking like, well, we can't get this right. How do we plan on getting all the other things right? So we just, I don't know, our community, we just keep just keep messing ourselves up. And, it's just not, it's not a good look. So, that's all I got.
I was gonna say, you got all kinds of stuff to brag about. Your team won at the community forum.
Oh,
We
yeah.
talked about the community forum last week.
Not, last week was when the community forum was.
Man, it
Been a
was?
long week.
Oh. Did attend the community forum and the leaders conversation the next prior day. Yes, we did win. We won the grant monies to do an idea in our community, and it's called Did You Know? It'd be a Did You Know campaign where we take historical facts about Geary County, Junction City, and make sure we post it throughout the community. We're trying to figure out different ways to make it interactive and fun, because there was, I want to say it was like a couple of other ideas around doing something like that at the forum. So I would like if all three groups can get together and come up with one good plan. So our conversation after, it was eye-opening. We're behind the curve when it comes to doing things and making progress and fixing up, giving our community a facelift. And I think it's tough. We're in a tough spot because there's not a whole lot we can do in terms of the things that was talked about in that conversation as a county. I mean, we can partner and we can look for ways to help from that standpoint, but a lot of the things that seemed like it needed to have action and be moved on has to start at the city. So I want to continue that conversation. I did talk to Michaela and Terry and told them to keep pushing forward. We need to meet again, all the leaders, and continue the conversation of how do we work together to fix some of our deficiencies, lack of parks. How do we facelift grant? What does it take? Where do we get the funds from? How, we have to meet, we have to talk about that. That's, and I saw some on the book face. It's that place is, it's a good place to go and look and just get a good chuckle sometimes. But also you do have people in there that, they have legit things to say. And one of the posts I saw was, we're worried about growth and we can't do the little things. And so, yeah, that was the telltale comment from that individual. So, nope, I want to get to work and figure out how we can help be a part of that story, how we can help put things in place, move forward on some of these action plans and projects and different things. So I think that's it.
I hope so. Steve, you got anything?
Well, of course, I came to the baby shower last week with Travis and Katie. I thought that was well done. As well, made it late to the forum, attended the leadership meeting. I thought it was interesting what he had to say about how people are working from home on their computers. And it's not so much about brick and mortar nowadays. make it a place you want to come and live, you know, quality of life. And that would be the draw. Had an MPO meeting last week. Not a whole lot out of that other than there's still, the state's still really pushing, and the feds for that matter, for EV readiness, so electric vehicles. So that's gonna be part of our plans going forward, but until we know what kind of funding we get from the feds and the state, not a lot we can do. Our finances are looking really good. And then did an amendment to one of our plans and, but it didn't have anything to affect Geary County. There was no pot in Riley County. Then I had PBC meeting the next day. And a lot of that information will be shared with our joint meeting today. So, I know Ken Mortensen's working real hard on accounts receivable and accounts payable, trying to figure that out. Other than that, that's about all I got.
I was really glad to see Jared, the MPO director at the community forum and the leadership retreat. I'm glad to see that he's involved in that. I think the biggest thing you got out of the community forum was one, I mean, I was so excited to see the variety and diversity of the ages, genders, cultures at our community forum and everybody throwing out ideas and it was a lot of fun. And I think the biggest thing takeaway is even if it's little, it's gonna make a huge impact. And that is something that I think this community needs right now after being, you know, going through that rough financial hardship period and beautification is a huge deal. And one of the things that the speaker said was, you know, don't look at how much it's gonna cost you if you do something, how much is it gonna cost you if you don't do something? And I think that was a huge light bulb for people and, you know, to try to get together and look at things differently and think outside the box and look at how we can do things to improve our community. And it does take a village. It takes our whole community to get that done. I also went to the ribbon cutting and tour of the Munson Education Building at the Opera House. Absolutely gorgeous. If you have not been there, you need to go. It is absolutely gorgeous. Such a great space, not only to help for, you know, the education of the arts, but even for the community to hold meetings there. And they have an art room for the art classes, just so many things that, such a variety of things that that building can be used for, and we're very blessed to have that in our community. So yeah, that was really exciting. Due to a very bad illness, I was unable to make the Child Care Summit on Friday, and I was very disappointed. I do have the Zoom link, and when I have time, I'm gonna watch it, but I've gotten a lot of great feedback. I know Crystal was there, and there was quite a few businesses there. The speakers did really well, I heard, and it was the time management, and we tried really hard scheduling the speakers, so we tried to pack as much information as we could get in a short amount of time, because I know that you know, people's time is very valuable, and I think it was a great success. Again, I'm disappointed that I didn't make it, but prior to that, at the beginning of the week, I did go to a bunch of businesses and hand out the cards so they could get registered, and we had over 50 people there, so I was really excited to see that was a success. We are planning to have a provider one as well next month on April 20th, and we'll have more information coming out as soon as we secure the times and what's going to be going on with that. So there's a lot of people that are wanting to get involved, and I hope we can all get together on the same page and move forward and get this going. So, oh, and I also wanted to bring up, we still have not received any of the information we asked the EDC in the things. And I don't know when your guys' next meeting is, but.
I'll bring it up.
Thank you.
Back to, I attended the ribbon cutting and tour as well. And when you said it's gorgeous, the woodwork in
Oh,
there
yeah.
is just, oh my gosh.
And there's the table and chairs that John York made are
Yes.
just stunning.
Oh my gosh.
Is that across the street?
No, it's right
No,
next
it's right
door.
next door.
Oh, right next door.
And there was a good turnout.
Yes, there was a very good turnout for the ribbon cutting. I went to the 10 o'clock one and then I went to the ribbon cutting too at 4, so. Yeah. All right, Crystal, are you ready?
Don't worry about it. I'm really short and sweet today. Crystal Malcho's HR Director, my weekly report, one department head notification. As Trish mentioned, I did go to the Child Care Crisis Summit on Friday. It was very well attended. Sat with Economic Development, Kent Glasscock was there, just a number of people that were highly involved and recognize the issues. At one point, they asked us to write down anything that was, a really aha moment for us. And when they said that the average daycare provider earns $25,000 a year in Kansas, that was a real eye opener for me. I remember when, a couple decades ago, back when I only earned $25,000 an hour, or an hour, a year, and trying to live off that. So that was the eye opener for me. So our biggest issue is not, everybody getting on board. We are all on board. It's maintaining that momentum and moving forward and trying to find a solution for it.
Incentivizing people to be in childcare because it's a hard job.
Yeah, I love my children to death, but that doesn't mean I would want more of them running around and
Not me.
so bless those people that do that. So, tomorrow, Tammy and I will be at the Tech Fest in Manhattan. We've gone the last couple of years. Well, I've gone the last couple of years. I know that she went with me last year. Learn about IT and other ways to keep us safe. And then on Wednesday, I will be at the Capitol for the governor signing the proclamation saying that April is National County Government Month. They're also for the KAC board meeting, and I'll be back in the office on Thursday. And we are meeting with Katie on Friday, and we'll talk more about that at the department head staff meeting this afternoon.
Yeah, I had, when came in, had several employees come in this morning and we talked about the vision still is having some issues with the benefits but I thought it was a good discussion and covered some things but yeah, some of it we'll talk about at the meeting.
And that's all I have unless somebody has a question for me. Okay, I'll be back to department head staff meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is it showing us? Oh,
Office.
maybe it's getting.
Okay,
So,
quick thing.
yeah, it's not showing.
Hey, thank you.
Interesting. Hey, Charles, I know you're not till, quarter till, but come on up if you want us to do that grant paperwork.
I am ready.
Hey,
We just need to sign something for him.
Yeah.
No, Tammy came in, so I didn't want her to think she was.
Oh, I asked if you would,
Oh, mind if you popped in before
yeah,
her?
in case there was any questions on it.
You want to explain what this is?
So every year we have to sign off on our grants, the Aid Local and Opus. And it's to complete our applications. We've got our letter of intent for Opus saying that we plan on applying for that one. Then the Aid Local, it just shows how much we're getting from the state with those 3 grants. And that is it.
All right.
So 64,000 is what we, the county.
That would be their match, yeah. Which this year, we transferred 105,000 for their budget, and the year before, I think it was 65, so.
I make a motion to approve signature of the grants.
second.
All in favor? Opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries. Is this the only place that I, sign,
There's,
or is the director administrator,
that's where I sign off on.
president? I see. Yep, I see where it is. Madam President.
And I've got another copy that you can, if you just want to keep it for your records.
Oh, do you need this? You want this?
I need a sign one.
Yeah, okay. I'll sign, well, you want to make, I'll just sign these and then I'll give her that one. But then you need to sign, after you sign it and the other person signs it, then get that, I'll have him just give you, when he gets all the signatures, because there's 3 signatures on there. One of them's from KDHE.
No way.
And we don't get that one for a couple weeks.
We'll just make sure that they get it so that we have it on file.
I'll make sure.
All right, thank you.
Hey, thank you. And that was everything I had, so.
Okay, thank you. Welcome back, Tammy.
Thanks. Good morning, commissioners.
How was it?
It was great.
She survived.
So much to see. Not, I definitely, I'll have to have several trips before I'll see everything, but it was good. Thanks for asking. Good morning, and I am going to start with the bill I received from the city of Junction City for the ambulance. So we have the January bill. It is $149,341.80. And I did send an email to Lindsay this morning and asked her if she could send me over the paperwork for the wages, because we have no agreement with how those are divided at this point other than the admin. So I don't know how they calculated the wages for sure, and I would like to know before we just
Well, yeah,
start
that
paying them.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure that, what? No, I agree. This could have all been taken, if the city manager wasn't involved in this, this would already be done. It's getting really tiring. And, city commission needs to understand that he works for them. And I know that they are all on board and trying to get this worked out. And, yes, do not pay that bill until you know exactly every penny of where that money is coming from.
She did send over some pretty good detail. Like one of the things, we are paying an extra $40,000 for the final payment on their defibrillator. So she did make that note on debt service. So that is helpful.
Yeah, and I made a note, not been enough, but I circled that as well. And my question is there more debt service that we're not aware of?
I can certainly ask that question, but we did ask about leases. I don't know that we asked about debt necessarily, but the leases we asked because we thought they pertained to the ambulances. So I'm not sure that I actually knew about this defibrillator. Even from past documentation, I'm not sure that it was like separated out in a line like that I could identify, but
I don't understand how are they billing us for stuff and not having detailed billing? I don't.
well, they give us a summary line item, so it might say, for instance, operational supplies, but I don't know what was paid in that operational supply line. It does have lease financing, and so my understanding with that was that's only ambulances, but I don't see anything that says debt other than bad debt expense, and that is write-off stuff, so it's not this. And so I'm not sure where this has been categorized in the past. So that's some things that I can ask Lindsay about and get some more information on, but I did compare this to last year, and it's about $43,000 more than January of '23. That is one thing I can tell you.
Well, one thing that stuck out to me was, and maybe you see more of this than I do, but this is more detailed than I think we've ever, or I've ever seen.
Yeah, we've never received anything on the revenues before. We have had a line item that says the revenue that they collected, or not collected, the revenue that they billed. But then the worksheet that we got for the calculation of payment gave us what they actually received, but we never saw anything that actually itemized what they received before, but she did send that over this time.
I know that the hearing, when is in April, the 3rd? Okay, I thought it was the 5th, but, okay, the 3rd. I mean, that's approaching, so where are we on this?
We have a meeting scheduled for Thursday. I don't think the time has worked out yet. We had originally scheduled it for like 1:30. So we've been in conversation this weekend and this morning, back and forth of whether it's, in the morning on Thursday or at 1:30.
They said it at 1:30 and then we thought they sent out an invite and then neither of us could find the invite and then I have a conflict at 2, so I can meet. It should have left about an hour, so I can meet before then or after then. So I think we're trying to nail down a time.
I mean, it's getting to the wire again, so I mean, I'm to the point where
We're
I
gonna
think
take a proposal.
okay. I mean, but are they, well, I guess they have a meeting next Tuesday, not this Tuesday, but next Tuesday.
So we thought that would work well and, it's gonna be a preliminary proposal that Tammy came up with for, a way.
Because I think
it could be well
if we can't
calculated.
figure this out in the next week or so.
Talk about that.
If you wanna talk about it, yeah, if you wanna talk about it.
Do you want me to, in open session, or do we want to go into an executive session to make sure that
it matters.
since it's,
I mean,
This
we're
is
gonna
going
give
to
it
the
to them
executive
anyway, I think if you think it's, I don't have a problem doing things in open session.
I don't have a problem with it. I want it in open session. I want the public to see that the county commission is all on board on trying to work this out.
okay. I don't have it in front of me, but I think I can, give you the generality of it. So in trying to look at this plan, we're trying to make it make sense both from a population standpoint, from a valuation standpoint, and from a percentage of where the calls are taking place standpoint. So with that, first thing I took into account was our population. And one of the things that some of our meetings has brought to the table is City of Junction City is the only one that's paying separate from the county's cost. So why wouldn't Milford and Grandview Plaza be involved in that as well? So if you look at the population of that, Grandview Plaza, about 5%, Milford, about 1%, Junction City, 60%, and the county, about 34%. So there's your 100%. So if you take and you divide the levy based on those percentages, and then I take that and plug it in with how that is captured in both the assessed valuation and separating it out between the 3 cities, I can get that to work so that about 85% is being paid by the people from Junction City with the county and the city levy tax together. So that makes sense because 85% of the calls are in Junction City. And that's your main point. Grandview has a large number of calls with the other 3 populations. And so theirs works out to about 8%, which is pretty close to what the city gave us for what they have for calls in Grandview Plaza. So that works about perfect as well. Milford, 1%, and I think there's equals maybe just under 2%. And then the county is the difference, which I think is around 14%. And so when you look at that, it takes into account population, it takes into account your assessed valuations, and it takes into account all the cities having a part of this. And then it also takes into account where the calls are taking place. So as far as there's never going to be an absolutely perfect model, but this is about as close as I can get to making it capture all those points. So that is the proposal that we're looking at is to adjust it so the two small cities have a place in this. And rather than the 67%, 33%, spreading it out a little more and making it capture all those pieces.
Sounds reasonable.
So that would be a proposal. We still need to come to an agreement on the wages for the paramedics, EMS, and EMTs and AEMTs. I think we're okay with the admins. Right now, we're looking at the admins so that the fire chief is being paid from fire. Kent is being paid from EMS. And then the other three are 50-50, which is fire chief, Kelly, their admin, and then their chief operating officer.
You mean fire marshal?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that sounds reasonable. I know, and I know that city staff has worked hard to get you all the information that you need. But this has just been so frustrating, this whole, I mean, I know you guys have dealt with it more intimately, but I don't see why this is so hard, to come to an agreement. And I think it's because people haven't been given all the information. And, it's come to the point where, maybe a third party does need to look at this. I mean, if they do not want to accept anything that we're trying to do, because I've not seen any give and take into this on that part. And so.
Well, the last time we met, we just asked, what are you thinking? And I don't know that anybody necessarily had a beginning point. Everybody was like, I don't know.
But at this
sure
point
where
in
to
the
start.
game,
So,
we should be further, we've been dealing with this for almost a year.
well, and
They
I
told us
think,
some ideas they really didn't like that we proposed, and they.
Right.
It's like, look, I proposed some things, and they're like, yeah, we don't like that.
well, and we talked about the special district and I think both they and we have some concerns about how that would function and how it would affect the taxpayers. So, we talked about a lot of things, but nobody was really like ready to dig in. So after that meeting, I just started working through some calculations and I reached out to Betsy and had her look at it and see what her thoughts were. And this is where we're at for our proposal to see if we can.
And if every
forward.
single person on that department is trained both as on the medical side and the fire side, those salaries should be in both the medical side and the fire side.
Well, and I think part of the city's argument with that is, well, you're already paying about 50-50. So let's just make it 50-50. And it's not that I'm opposed to 50-50 at all. My real concern is, why wasn't it that way before? Why was there such an emphasis placed
Because
on
only one person was
paramedics?
making that decision. So that's why.
But, just trying to understand, is there a reason and do we need to still look at that paramedic thing? That's one of the things we were trying to understand in determining what kind of a calculation makes sense, besides just saying, oh yeah, shoot, let's just make it 50-50. If there's some rhyme or reason, then let's talk about it and work it out and figure out, or else move forward. And then the other piece with that, as we've spoke several times, is, we have 14, 15 paramedics now, but as they move forward and you have more moving up to paramedic, that's more cost shifting to just the EMS side if you leave those 100%. So even if it's 48% now, it could be 56%, 66% in a few years. So.
And we have no say in how they operate and don't want any say in how they operate, regardless of what people say. But when you look at it from that standpoint, it makes no sense for us to become an EMS district, because the argument is still the same, that that's not just pure EMS. There are also.
Right.
So.
There's an overlap.
Yeah.
And like you said, there's not gonna be a perfect solution. We just need to come and get, a solution that is best for our community.
And if it makes sense and we can all be on the same page and we can all tell the same story, it will make it much easier for everybody in the community to accept it and, you know, the reasoning, if it can be a clear plan and there's no he said, she said stuff, so.
I mean, I mean, if we go along with it and just sign off, people have to pay higher taxes. And that's the biggest complaint now, we're paying
There
high
has to be a lot
taxes.
of trust there, and I don't see any trust.
So, you know, it's not just get along and just sign off, it's, no, I mean, like, make it make sense. And I
Well-
don't think right now it's making sense for the county to
Look at the
be able
percentage.
to do that and take the hit on paramedics year after year. I mean, like, we be setting up future commissions.
And that was one of the things when I had spoke with Betsy that, you know, if we would do this based on the population, then of course, within that agreement, you would want to revisit this every few years and reevaluate if that population still stands. And so you can always do a little bit of an adjustment there. And that again is something that I think if you put this into an interlocal agreement, it can make sense for the future when none of us are here. Whoever is can build off of that easily.
Well, I know last week when you shared this with me, you made a comment that you did have a conversation with one commissioner
Mhm.
that actually wanted to come and talk to you
Yes,
and set up
Yes.
a meeting. And they sounded very receptive to this.
yes.
Well, that's good to hear. I just don't think that they had been getting the information, and I'm going to make it, my mission that any information we have, I'm sharing with the commissioners.
Okay, well, that's kind of our plan. And if you have any questions or anything, you can let us know. But I think that we're gonna try to meet with them, propose it and see where we can be. We did. Did we give them something to take back the last time? I feel like we did. That they were going to talk to their commission about. Oh, we did. This is the other piece of this is the current budget. We have 1.5, they have 2 million. So historically, they've used 88% of their budget. So if you take a 12% off of that million or that 2 million, and it comes down to like 1,760,000. And if you take that versus our 1.5, if you meet in the middle, it's 1,630,000. So we did propose that to them and said, you know, this is where we would be willing to look at going up.
Did you give that to them?
The last meeting we had, which has been a couple weeks ago.
So it was before spring break.
Oh, I don't know if the commissioners have gotten that.
I don't know either, but that was what we had asked them to.
Well, that
to
was
get
something
back
I
to
know
them.
when we talked about this and we gave you the authority to figure out that area between the 500,000 that were in, and so, I know that was something that had been talked about, and I see that as a fair, offer.
And we didn't just throw a number out. I mean,
Yeah.
we walked them through it so that they knew exactly how we came to that number so that they could pass on that information and determine whether that was workable for them. Because, you know, we're gonna have to give as well some of our reserves. And then they're going to have to give some reserves to meet in the middle, so.
And this was all because nobody wanted to negotiate before budget season. You know, I don't want to hear that the county or the city didn't know. I believe that,
Oh, we try to get on the agenda.
yeah, when
we got on-
people try to
taken
play
off.
those little games of not letting you on the agenda, even though you had talked to the clerk, and that was way before the budget was done. So him saying that in the city commission meeting, that we had no idea they were gonna budget this. We tried to talk to you. And you didn't listen. And I'm just so fed up with this whole thing.
The only other thing I wanted to touch base on is while I was out, Corey's group came over about a Purple Wave sale and he was wanting to put the money into the general fund.
Yeah.
Thinking it was going to offset his budget. It won't because it's not a reimbursement and that's the only way to offset your budget is if it's a reimbursement for something that you paid for in that year.
Okay.
And so with that, they did get the money today and they were going to deposit it, and I would still like to recommend that it go to the CIP, because that's where we're paying for equipment now. And this is a piece of equipment, and it may not have originally been with CIP, but we've paid for several things since then for
For them.
public works. So to me, since it can't help their budget, there's no reason for it to sit in the general fund.
And after I saw the email that you sent, Kayla, and that makes total sense, and
Yeah.
I understand where he was coming from, but then the way you explained it about it wasn't a reimbursement thing, yeah, I totally agree with that, so
Yeah.
then, do I hear a motion that we, change that, allocation to go to the CIP?
So move.
Second.
All in favor? Pose same sign, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would say if we can't figure nothing out by this next meeting, we may just need to just wait till we, to that court date. Because if we can't figure it out between the two entities, it's not a maybe we need somebody else to help us out, because everybody's math apparently isn't adding up.
Okay.
And I
Well-
just say that to be fair, like, they don't like our numbers, we don't like theirs. So maybe somebody else needs to help us figure that out and tell us how to move forward.
Okay.
So,
And I will ask for a little bit more detail on some of the other expenses besides just the salaries, and I'll keep you posted on that bill.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Makes no sense to keep going back and forth if we
Yeah.
can't figure it out. And I'm not trying to be rude, it's just, we can't agree, somebody else can help us agree.
Hello, gentlemen.
How's everybody doing?
The cold weather's supposed to start coming in today. You could talk about it getting colder. Getting a lot of snow up north. I'll probably try to schedule some colleges or put snow up there. That's Nebraska.
At least it's gonna last long.
Yeah. I always remember my grandma said, you know, it got to snow about the first of April. And she said, well, it won't last very long this time. You know,
Okay, welcome back. Thank you. Did we get a quorum, Lisa? Or Lisa, did we get a quorum? Did we?
Yes.
No. Good enough.
I'm gonna sit over here and let you do that.
Okay, and we don't really need this top area. I mean, we can just pull another chair right here. You can do what you want. Here, if needed.
I don't think they want to sit with us.
I guess not.
Well, I need them to because I can't pick them up on the recorder.
They'll come up.
Mr. Klein, please come to the together to think that because I don't pick you up on the recorder. Pick you back here.
Thank you. Smile, Jeff. I'm kind of candid, Kimber.
I take it we're first, too?
Yes. So you can get in and out.
Oh, okay, appreciate it. Good, how you doing, Trish? Morning, Keith.
Well, she was gonna do the keys.
I feel better when I quit her.
That's true.
That's what my mom always told me.
Yeah, right.
Good morning, this is Rodney.
Hi, Mr. Glessner, this is Louisa, we're calling you into the PDC joint meeting.
Rena,
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Timmy, we'll have you on speaker. We're getting ready to start the meeting.
Okay, thank you so much.
And you think everybody that's.
I think that's, is that it? Okay. Ready for a start? Okay, so we'll call our meeting to order. We've got a quorum. And first order of business is Mr. Klein.
All right, so if you haven't been to the hospital lately, the boiler room has changed significantly. We've gotten some of the big pieces that we've been waiting for years in, and some of them are up and operational, others are in different stages. So I'll start at the beginning. The mixing valves are in, so the old vice scripts, they're gone.
That was a clue to me that they were right.
All right, yeah,
You kept those for this one.
yes, we did. We're gonna give them to the museum. All right, so gonna gold plate them first. But the mixing valves are in. We've had no issues with them. So we basically can monitor our hot water digitally now. So we can tell how hot the water being made by the hot water heaters are, what the mixing valve temperature is going out to the hospital, what the return temperature is coming back, and then how much cold water we're introducing to temper it a little bit. So, and we've had them up and running for well over a month now, and we haven't had a single issue. About 2 weeks ago, we installed the hot water heaters. So they're different. They're semi-instantaneous hot water. So basically, it's not like the old big almost, where you had the coils in the inside and everything and had to push steam all the way through. Basically, it's short bursts of steam, hot water, the water hits it, heats it up, sends it through to the mixing valve side. So we have two of them. We've only been running one at a time, and we've had no deficiency in hot water at all. So those are up. They sit horizontal, where the first hot water heater used to sit. We need to demo the other two hot water heaters yet, but we just haven't gotten that far yet, but they'll come out eventually. So the long-awaited DA tank has arrived. It's in place. It's being plumbed now. It ties into the surge tank that we got probably a good month and a half ago. And so if you're familiar with the boiler room, when you walk in on the upper deck, that used to be full of junk in the old office and everything, that's all gone. And the surge tank sits there. And then the DA tank sits where the third boiler was that didn't work. And it goes straight up well into the ceiling. And then it has piping that comes down that we're starting to tie in. And then eventually they'll tie back into the boilers. So to the existing boilers and then to the future boilers.
What does DA stand for again?
Deaerating. So we actually make heavy water. Okay, just like you would for everything else. We deaerate the water. We also do other things to it. In our current situation, we do everything in one tank. We have that old DA tank and we put ChemTreat in there, chemicals. We preheat the water in there and then we deaerate it in there. That's really not how you should do it. You need the two-step process where we're putting the chemical back in with the condensate and then adding your makeup water, preheating that makeup water, then sending it over to the deaerating tank, deaerating the water, and then sending that clean water to your boilers. So that's what will be here in about mid-May, maybe a little before that, late April. So to get all that done, this Thursday, we're shutting off the boilers at about 1:30. We'll have water for the hospital. Hot water will diminish as you go throughout the course of the day, not getting replenished with the steam. But we are going to do one big shutdown to put in all the tie-in valves that we need, all the cutoff valves that we need, and everything in one big bang, so that when we start connecting the DA tank, start rerouting the condensate, and then start installing the new boilers, we have all the valves and cutoffs that we need, so we can actually do it independently of having to shut down other things in the hospital to make that all work. So that's our going in plan right now. So if we look at the schedule, it's going to take from now till early May to get all that plumbed in. We get our new fuel system in there as well. If you remember, there's a big white tank out back and had diesel fuel in it. That's all been taken out, been cleaned. The tank's been cleaned. We're having a new diesel platform installed. And so when we get up on the new boilers, the system will actually alternate back and forth between natural gas and diesel fuel, so that that diesel fuel just doesn't sit in that tank. Like every week, it will run a couple cycles on diesel fuel through each boiler, so that if we ever were to lose natural gas from Kansas Gas, we would always have that diesel backup. But to keep that operational, it's going to be
Keep the
programmed,
fuel from getting
steel and everything. It's going to be programmed to kick in. So that will be coming. So we got to get all that plumbed in and ready to go. Then the big news is your first new boiler should arrive somewhere around the second week of May and should be up and operational about June 11th. And then we have to take apart the second Unilux, get it out of there. And then the third boiler will set somewhere around the end of June, beginning of July, and be up. And then we'll disable the current Superior boiler, the smaller boiler, because it's going to get a new burner unit and new electronic controls to match the other two boilers. So when we're all said and done, sometime in August, sometime early September, when that third boiler gets back up, all three boilers will be identical as far as burners and controls and everything, and they'll all be on Metasys, which is the hospital control system. So busy spring in the boiler room. So the other two projects that are ongoing is the air handling for the SPD and kitchen. So that's the old part of the hospital on the first floor. So when I say kitchen, it's actually the kitchen area, not so much the dining and serving area. It's really the kitchen, and then what's directly behind that, which is your sterile processing and the old materials management part of the hospital, right there. So that's all getting new ductwork. Up in the mezzanine, if you were to walk across the mezzanine like we go in before you have to duck your head, all that has a platform on it now, and it's gonna be a permanent platform. So we can get out there and all new ductwork's being put in, new VAVs are put in. If you go up there today, the dining area has a big wrap around it in plastic. That's how we got up over top of the kitchen, and we built decking that way. And so we got lucky. When they built 2008, the Western expansion, part of the cafeteria got remodeled in that, and the lobby got redone in that, and everything. And that got a new air handler in the basement, the big one out by the back door. And so they terminated the airflow for that right above the cash registers, or right basically where you walk in the door to the serving area from the dining area. And they were about 25 feet up, but they were end capped. Well, instead of us having to put another whole air handler and everything, we had enough volume left or enough upside capacity in that air handler in the basement that we were able to go up and connect right to that existing ductwork. And now we extended that across the dining area, and that's what will actually feed then the SPD, the kitchen area, and all that good stuff. So we don't have to run the other way. Now we'll come in the other way for materials management and stuff with the other rooftop unit that we're getting. But going that way, we were able to capitalize on that. So all that ductwork's done, and we'll be up there in that dining area for about another 2.5 weeks yet. But the VAVs are up there, which controls the flow of air and everything. So we got to put some hot water up there yet to get them hot, cold. But that's moving along. As far as the rooftop units themselves, we're still waiting on steel. So steel seems to have like the same backlog of time that DA tanks do. So until we get steel set on the roof, we won't get any new air handlers on the roof. Radiology's kind of running a little bit behind that. So, but we're starting to go into the radiology area above the ceiling and taking out the old ductwork and putting in the new ductwork to service all that when the new air handlers come in for all that. And if you would look up on the roof, you would see piles and piles of old ductwork. Some of the stuff in the mezzanine starting to come out. The doors from the mezzanine out to the new parts of the roof where the air handlers are all in place now or getting put in place. So we're making all those preparations for those last two air handlers, 3 air handlers actually. So that's where we're at with all that. As far as new projects, the only thing we signed off on was some med gas work we have to do to get rid of some old med gas that's on that tower side. Because if we go in there and start remodeling rooms and stuff, we can't really have the med gas operational. So we're gonna cut out a lot of that old med gas. We have to reroute some med gas in the boiler room. I don't know, there's a valve that turns this way and right up against it's the med gas line. So you can't turn the valve without hitting the med gas line. So we got a little bit of that to do. And then as far as new projects, we're still in the design phase for the tower, for the HVAC and wastewater. We're still in the design phase for the HVAC for MAB one. Although we did come up with a new plan for that that saves us. If you're all familiar with me screaming and yelling about the train unit that sits on St. Mary's Road, that's the air handler that's out there, chiller. If you open the door on that, I had nothing to do with this. It replaced the original 1971 one in 2005, but when you open the door, it says refurbished unit in 2005. So they never even put a new unit in. We usually lose about a compressor a year out of it, so we just got it fixed again last week. But the way, we have enough chiller capacity in the big chiller room that we're gonna be able to take cold water from the chiller room and run over to MAB one and not have to have that extra chiller outside of MAB one. So that's all in the design phase now, but we are gonna be able to eliminate one chiller on MAB one because we have enough capacity in the main chiller plant. And then we're still working on the electrical. And we've purposely slowed down a lot on that simply because with the other projects ongoing, there's no reason to try to incorporate another project at this point in time. I mean, we just got people all over the place and they're stepping on each other. We need to get through this boiler room, get some of this rooftop stuff done, and then move on to new projects later in the fall. So that's kind of the plan right now.
Awesome. It's like Christmas for you mechanic type, right? Huh?
Sort of, except when well, we thought it should go left and it really goes right. Yeah, we thought it was over there and it's really over there. It's not a perfect science.
Thank you so much for that update. I'm excited to hear it's going well.
What are the plans for MAB one? Is it,
So, right now, from a deferred maintenance perspective, we're going to replace the heating and air in all three floors. Okay, redo all that. So basically that means an air handler of some sort, and then VAV boxes similar to what we're doing for radiology and things. As far as remodeling the clinics at this point in time, there's no plan to do that. I will tell you that Stormont Vale is making a 3, 5, 7-year plan on how to use the building and where they see growth in modalities that they may not currently have. Okay, and so, and as we redo the tower, we're designating like the 3rd floor is all clinics to be revenue generating floor. 2nd floor is going to be a support floor, and a lot of things that are over there, like EVS or Trimedics, which does our medical equipment fixing and everything. We see them moving over to MAB one and occupying. So be less and less clinical space in MAB one. There's some other things that could happen here in the next couple months that's going to free up some other space that we can eventually look to move urgent care and things like that to a more accommodative locations. But I think I got a strategic planning session with Stormont Vale for 2 days, like the 4th and 5th of April or something.
Nice.
okay, sounds good, though.
Yeah, it does. Sounds like.
And there's a new general surgeon. Did you hear that?
Yep.
Starts in September,
Yeah, that's awesome.
and a new family practice.
Mhm.
Those things are both needed.
Yes, yes.
So, all right.
Any other questions for Jeff?
Oh, great.
Corey, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I was up there first part of the month and they're making progress. I mean, it slowed down a little bit, but they're picking back up now. So.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All right,
Yeah.
thanks.
Thanks, Jeff.
Raider Nation,
Pardon?
Raider Nation.
Next thing is detention center update. Sean Harding and Corey.
Handouts.
Yeah, yes.
You guys see.
I don't remember who all I've met in this process. But you're all gonna get another card.
Okay.
I'll give you another one.
Great.
Sean, how are you?
Circle.
Okay, I guess before, I turn it over to Sean, HMN, just wanted to update, both committees that, commissions. We received a second invoice from HMN on March 12th for the services from January 26th through February 25th, and the total was $20,019.41. So far, the total charges, that's been paid is $30,244.41 for this assessment. So with that, Sean, it was Friday is when he dropped these off at my office. But I'll have him give the update on where he's at so far.
So Corey asked me if I had something I could give him to share with you folks. I'm very close to having the report finalized. There's a few things that I've gone through and I need to add, and a couple of things that Corey and I have talked about that will make some changes to this report. But for the most part, this is the product that I'm going to hand you. I sometimes feel guilty for coming back to a commission or a public building commission to tell them that there are problems with a building that they paid a lot of money for, but that's what this is about. So as we've gone through this building, I've been in the building multiple times and had my team in to take a look at it. I think one of the issues with any building where you add on multiple times is you live within the confines of, to some degree, of what the previous person did. So as things changed from 1959 to 2006, Florida floor heights are different than they used to be. Technology is different than what it used to be. The way we heat and cool buildings is different than what we used to be, and energy requirements are different than they were at that time. So as you go through my report, it might seem a little bit doom and gloom. I think some of the more recent events that's happened at the jail give some segue to what my report is. We've had some damage to some walls that were built in the 1986 edition. And for the most part, if you read my report, there are other issues with the 1986 edition that make this a harder project to easily fix. There are things about the management style in that portion of the building. There are things about the construction in that portion of the building that if you look in my report and the design solutions and with the most recent issues with the masonry, I'm showing that portion of the building actually being replaced, which again, we're talking about tying into a building that's got historic register. It's titled as a historic building, plus the 2006 building. And we're trying again to tie from floor to floor, elevator stop to elevator stop in those buildings. I don't want to go through this thing. You guys you got a copy now in front of you. What we did is I asked my team to go ahead and see if we could take all the old documents we had and actually put together, I think it's on page 2, an idea of what this building looks like in plan form as a whole. So what you've got is about 44,000 square feet of building. It's in essence a 3-story facility. 3 different eras of inmate management style. And then I worked from the 1959 building to the 2006 building in assessing some of the issues with that building. So I start at the roof and I work down to the lower level. If you've been in the building, you'll notice that there's damage at every skylight. The shingle roof has not held up and it's not provided the protection needed. There is also a wood deck above the metal structure in there. I have no idea how that's held up. We did not do any forensic work where we pulled off shingles to take a look at the sheathing itself. I think in the mechanical side, they'll address this a little bit more, but one of the things I noticed really fast, it looked like there was some fire damage on the underside of the equipment screens up on the roof. And from what I'm told, that had something to do with either a lint fire, and they didn't have the proper lint trap in that process. So you'll see a picture of that on page 4. They address that with actually putting in the proper lint traps in this. I think some of the other things that got brought up to me right from early on in this process when I got up with Mark and Corey on the building is there is some stonework that's failed. The masonry on this, we see some idea that there was some efflorescence on the masonry work, which is a sign that there's been water within the masonry that's trying to find its way out, and it leaks the lime out of the mortar and leaves white stains on the exterior of the building. Those are all things that bring some concern to us as far as the structure of the building. The technology in both the earlier portions of the building is fairly dated, and as if you haven't toured the building, I think that would be a good idea for everyone to actually take a trip through this building. At one point in time, there was a control station up in the 1986 portion of the building, and it has been abandoned. There are so many panels and access control, low voltage pieces in there that room really can't be repurposed for anything. So it's basically just an electrical type room that has an office and one functioning bathroom and one non-functioning bathroom in that space. There are also smaller guard stations scattered throughout. I think there's 3 or 4 of them scattered throughout the 1986 portion of the building that actually housed a staff member at one time that gave him views down the hallway. When they switched over to the newer technology, those became obsolete. So they're basically abandoned square footage in the building as well. Glass block, I haven't seen glass block since I was in college. I see a lot of glass block in this building. One of the problems with glass block, especially if inmates have access and it's not solid, so it can break out one side and becomes a hollow for them to stash stuff or use for their own storage. It also gives them a piece of heavy glass that they could use as turn into a weapon or material that they could use for a weapon. I didn't talk a lot about the 1959 building. I think all of these older jails are kind of upside down. We've got housing above administrative spaces. We've got a kitchen above administrative spaces in this. So when there's a problem and that water has to find a way out, which I think you guys had a frozen pipe that broke here during that real cold spell. It finds its way down through somebody's office. If there's a piece of cast iron that's a waste line that breaks, it finds its way into somebody's office. So that was one of our bigger concerns, is that we've had a number of incidences down in the admin area. In essence, it would be great to flip this and put admin up above and keep the housing on the lowest level. you'll notice that I've got a couple of shots in here. We've got some 9-inch tile still in the 1959 building, which either means the tile's got asbestos or the adhesive that holds the tile down's got asbestos. It's in a tucked in a corner, the only place I found it, and it's sealed and is not being abraded or causing any problems near as I can tell. But that brought me up to the next question is, I've got an elevator that feeds a kitchen that's not, I think they have purchased food carts now that fit that elevator, but for my first trip out here, they had food carts that wouldn't even fit the elevator, so they were taking food down by hand down a set of stairs to get it to the level of the inmates. Again, sometimes putting things in the right location to the housing makes the whole operation work a little bit better. We've got several pictures in here that show a little bit about some of the damage in ceilings and stuff like that. The admin area in particular has a lot of issues with older cast iron pipes causing them problems. They also have, Mark, you might have to help me with this, or Corey. We have a kind of a roadblock on our sprinkler system. We've got one group that will not certify the sprinkler system because of
welded joints.
Yes. So we have what Corey's saying is, instead of a mechanically fastened sprinkler head to a pipe, they did mechanically fasten it and they welded it in place. So there's no way of testing some of that stuff, or at least not testing individual heads. Jail operations is something that I'm going to talk just a little bit about. I think obviously the older building, it was done in 59. We've got a different class of inmate now than we did back in 1959. We had Otis back in 59. We don't have Otis anymore. What Mark deals with, in essence, general pop might be the nice way of putting, but we basically build to a harder standard for our inmates now. When I look at this building, and I think one portion of my report, and the mechanical and structural engineer, they look at it piece by piece by the systems that they're familiar with or they deal with. I look at this a little bit differently. I'm looking at, I've got information here about some code issues. I got information about just the general conditions of the building. And I also talk about operations of the jail. And I want to talk a little bit about that. I think when I got into this business and did my first jail in 95, I looked at a lot of companies that were doing this and I kind of held them to high esteem. And now that I've been in a few of their facilities, I don't hold them to as high esteem. When I look at the process that Mark deals with when somebody comes into a system, they enter a sally port, there's 3 holding cells, or what I would call a bullpen, because they're not individual cells. Bring people in and set them down in groups and those things. We've got flushing floor drains. I don't think any of those 3 cells are wet cells with a combo, are they? No. There's no combo in any of those cells. So somebody needs to take care of business. They're going to do it in front of everybody squatting over a flushing floor drain. If his staff needs to flush that toilet, they have to go back through a cell into the sally port to hit the valves. They're located actually in the sally port. Makes no sense to me whatsoever. It should be at the booking desk or within the number of feet for the flushing valve to work per the plumbing code. After they go through that process and they start their booking process, there is no individual cells that Mark can use to help with his classification system on his inmates. There is a large 8-person holding area behind the booking desk. He's got a work release area to the south of the booking area. And so for the most part, he's doing group evaluations and not individual evaluations. I do show a few design options in my report. This report is not a design exercise, but I do show a few things in my report that gives some idea of what could be done in those areas. once they start that process and they get taken up to the housing area, there's decisions made somehow in the classification process, whether those people are gonna go to the individual cells in the 1986 portion, or they're gonna go to the large dormitory areas in the 2006 portion of the building. When I went up into the control room of the 2006 portion of the building, I'm not very tall, but all I saw was the head of a door. I could not look into the day rooms. A transom at that height would have been really nice to be able to see the depth into the space. Or if they just lowered the control room down the 2 or 3 steps, you could have looked into that space. As it is, I asked one of the staff that working in the control room how they dealt with it. They told me they asked the person to step up to the door to be seen. So they are very dependent on cameras in a design that looks like it shouldn't be camera dependent. The 1986 side, however, is very camera dependent. It's a linear jail design, and it does require much greater effort on the staff's part to make sure people are safe or are in good condition when they do their watch tours. In essence, they should be going into every day room door and checking the 2 cells, stepping out, making sure those doors are secured, going down to the next small day room and starting that process through the whole day. I don't know what these young people that work there get on their Fitbits, but it's a lot. They're putting in a lot of miles. And again, I guess the point of this is we've got the Wild West on the south end. We've got a day room with multiple inmates that are in a large dormitory setting. And we got very confined space, which makes some sense to some degree if it was laid out a little more staff efficient, that you have a very controlled environment for certain inmates and you've got a little more open environment for those that, in the right classification can stay in a group setting. Materials, bar front those days have gone, just like the glass block. Typically, and I think I've got a couple of pictures in here. Some of these folks are doing this just to give themselves privacy, but they're tying off to those bars, which could be a ligature point in some cases. In other cases, it's just a way of screening them from being viewed by the staff. And I noticed Mark appears to be taking those down about as fast as they go up. I think on page 11, you'll see in the lower right corner, that's the old control room. I don't know that I've ever been in a control room with that many electrical panels and low voltage panels. The other thing is they've had to retrofit the entire 1986 with these surface mounted locks that went over the old locks, because the system that was used when they built that in 86 is basically an obsolete system. You've got a lot of sliding doors. Sliding doors in themselves inherently are hard to maintain and cost more money for the initial installation and maintenance over their lifetime. So I think you've got, 2 areas that have swinging doors in the 1986 portion, Mark? Two cell areas? Or is it just one?
That has,
Swinging doors versus sliders.
right, there
Yeah.
are two ponds.
That's what I was thinking. I'm not a mechanical engineer, so I will do my best to try to explain some of that. And then I'll just take some questions. The other thing is I do talk about codes and some ADA, AG stuff, and there are a number of issues in the building in regards to ADA. We got an outdoor rack yard that looks like 5 steps down to get into it. And the other thing that was very apparent to my mechanical engineers is you've got some vent stacks in there that are about 2 foot off the exercise floor that probably don't need people around those. You got, most of the showers, I think, I'm told that there's one cell, and I think it was occupied when I was there, so I didn't get a look at it, but one cell that's actually an ADA cell in the, 1986 portion. The newer portion does meet some of those requirements, and I think it also meets some of the energy requirements. I think there's questions from the mechanical side and from the architectural side on if the 1986 meets energy requirements, and I'm sure that the 1959 doesn't. That's why we had a pipe freeze. Talk a little bit about the design options. I can let you guys kind of take a look at that. Structural had concerns about masonry and had concerns about the capstones sliding off the pediments. There was some interior things, mainly concerns about puddling water and what that's doing to reinforcing steel in the structure of the building. They talk a lot about joint sealants, and that's always a problem on these buildings. They're hard use buildings, interior and exterior joint sealants are important, and I would suggest that any county starts thinking about budgeting some money towards paint and caulking in a facility like this because of its use. And you'll see their recommendations on page 27, and then they talk about limitations as well. I think one of the very apparent things, so I'm gonna skip right on over to the MEP, and then I'll take the questions, is water. There seems to be a problem with piping in pretty much every aspect of this building. And I do have a cost estimate at the end of this, and when you start looking at it, I talk about 100% replacement of the cast iron waste lines and water lines in this building. I also talk about 100% replacement of the fire protection system in here. There are things that I think make a lot of sense, and especially in areas near the admin that are not in the secure perimeter where material changes make a lot of sense. We could use a different material, a PVC type product that would make it a lot easier to maintain and even a lot easier to replace when necessary. Taking out large chunks of cast iron pipe is an obstacle for almost any maintenance group in a county. I think you'll look on, there are some things that they say are in good condition, but I think if you look at some of their notes, there are issues with a lot of the pumps, a lot of the piping, a lot of, I think there's a few things in there about some new water, hot water heaters, or hot water tanks that are, they look like they're in great condition and salvageable. I think when the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, folks were here, we had a temporary, generator setting on the east or west side of the building. And they go into some depth about that. One of the things that Corey told me this morning that, and I agree with him, they're asking to go from a 40 kV generator to replace the generator on the south side of deals with the south side of the building with a 100 kV generator. And we're going to try to get them both natural gas so that we're working with the same systems on both. The problem with, if we go from a 40 to 100 kV, there's wiring that's involved in that, which he didn't see accounted in the report. And I'll have to ask that question to make sure that they thought about that in their process. But it changes a lot of the stuff at the electrical panel side of things as well. So that would have to be reviewed, and I'll make sure that we've got that covered in our costs on that. I think one of the other things you'll look at, and this is a plus in my mind, page 39, you can look at the attic in the 1959 building, and there is a lot of wood framing and a lot of wood sheathing, which by code today, we would be removing any housing from that portion of the building. I worked with an old sheriff that talked about concrete cells and steel cells with wood framing like that. He called them, wood-fired pizza ovens. So gives you an idea of the importance of somebody that's housed 24/7 in a facility that doesn't have control of their exit and entrance into a space, the importance of making these things fireproof and protected from a fire protection standpoint. I think we talk about replacing the roof on the 1959, the 1986 portion. The roof on the 2006 actually looks in good shape. They go and talk about the utility transformer bank and some of the issues with the emergency power distribution. You'll see some of that on page 41. Again, for the mechanical side, the pooling of water in the exercise yard was a concern. Most of the exercise yards we do in our designs these days are actually under roof. They have a coiling overhead door or even a garage door in some cases that allows fresh air into the space and daylight. A lot of times we'll even put skylights in those spaces, so if the doors are down, people can go in there and they can still see daylight. You can use that for other purposes, whether that be programs or having clergy in. We need to make sure, in most counties I work in, we need to make sure most of our spaces have multiple uses like that because they are expensive to build. Lots of bits and pieces on plumbing in there, and there are lots of corroded and fittings in the plumbing side of things that look to be in need of repair or replacement. There are a few things in the kitchen that are, again, the location of the kitchen, from the architectural standpoint, the location of the kitchen is my biggest concern. There are some items in there, the grease trap and a few other things that mechanical, electrical, plumbing engineer had issues with. And I think they do speak about your new fire alarm system is fine, but I think there's some issues with getting it certified.
Well, the fire alarm system is a Siemens system, and I'm still waiting on a quote to upgrade the system because every time they come up, they'll replace 3 or 4 relays and maybe a few smokes or vice versa. And every time they come up, it's over $2,000. So it's waiting from Siemens to give me a quote to upgrade the existing fire alarm system, replacing all the outdated smokes, relays, and so on and so forth.
So the last part of this, and I finished this report because Corey told me he needed it today. I wanted to have it in his hands on Friday. So there are probably a few things in my estimate of costs that can be looked at and challenged. But for the most part, I tried to hold true to what I was told and discussed with staff and with Corey as we went through the building. But you're going to have selective demolition through the main portion of the 59. You're going to have selective demolition and not nearly as much in the 2009, but I think there's some booking things that need to be looked at. I'm showing a demolition in this number. I'm showing a demolition of the 1986 building and replacing it. And I've got design option to kind of show you the idea of what my firm thinks makes some sense, and that's a central control area that looks into housing that wraps around that central control area. And right now we're kind of just the opposite. We've got an outdoor rec area in the middle and then housing scattered throughout, and people have to make laps around that to check on inmates. Kitchen remodel, believe it or not, is actually one of the more expensive things that we do. We've got some money in there for that based on the square footage that it is. And in this report, I'm basically saying we're going to replace the portion of the 1986, but everything else at this point in time are kind of staying where we have it right now. And so there are square footages that I can attach numbers to. If I'm designing something, I'm going to have to relook at that, see where we locate it, see what that square footage ends up being. Elevator repairs, it's the last time I was here and, the elevator was up and running. The time before that, the elevator was not running. I think we need to look at both, the elevators and make sure that we are functional and have everything working the way we need it to work and stopping in the locations we need it to stop in. I've got money in there for roof replacement of the shingle roof. We've got money in there for caulking and exterior repairs. And we've got 100% replacement on the mechanical system replacement based on my MEP. Plumbing is also 100%. Electrical, I've got that right now at 80%. And then fire protection, I've got at 100% replacement. Those numbers can change a little bit one way or another. And if it's deemed that the 1986 is salvageable, that number can change a lot, but the number at the bottom is not going to change a whole lot. I mean, we move that mark just a little bit one way or another on the percentages of replacement. And we do replace the 1986 housing. You're not going to move that $29 million mark very much.
This is deja vu of the hospital. Deja vu. Deferred maintenance, kept building on. Deferred maintenance, and here we are. So I have a couple of questions. I know you talked about the admin. I actually met with some employees this morning about some different things, and one of the things brought up was the moisture and things that have gotten into the area of the administration area. Are we making sure that that air is safe for the employees there? If there's been that much moisture there?
Yeah, I think that's one of my bigger concerns is I still will have, if we leave it as is, we're still gonna have moisture in that area. We can put in,
Is there a way to test the air now that because.
yes, there are sniffers out there that we could actually test the air in that space. And I would have to defer to Henderson engineers on that just because that's not something I do. But yes, they could test the air for mold, any other pathogens that might.
Well, I don't know how you guys feel, but if there's been that much moisture down there and leaks, I think we should do our due diligence and make sure that the people that are working there now are safe.
So it sounds to me, Sean, like this, there's several factors, but the biggest one that sounds to me like was design and the piecemeal and every so many years apart. And so it's just kind of patching things together, so.
I'd actually met the gentleman that sat here, I don't know, year and a half ago, when we actually went and talked to him about some of their hospital needs. And that's one of the things that we also do. And hospitals are notorious about adding on. We don't do very many replacement hospitals. You work with what you've got. And that works reasonably well. The hospitals are 24/7 facilities as well. And that's one of the reasons why our firm did healthcare. And then we also started doing justice, is that they're very similar code wise. They're very similar in the thought process of overseeing people, but jails are a lot harder. They're just a lot harder on materials and everything else. So it was kind of interesting hearing some of the growth and needs and stuff in the hospital side. Yes, when you go from a 1959 building to something that was done about the time I was leaving K-State, the technology even then was far greater than it was in 1959. And then what we added on to the south far exceeded the 1986 thing. No one could foresee that. And different than a hospital or a classroom or whatever, a lot of these buildings are grouted solid and you can't just easily put in a conduit or run wire through a wall. It's not a capability in these things. You're usually grouted solid. And so you have, the next concern is as you add these things in and start correcting some of these things, you're doing surface mounted, conduit and stuff, and that becomes a ligature risk, a liability risk for the county. And that makes the staff side of things even more important in terms of being able to do their watch tour correctly, making sure that people are safe in their cells, and making sure that's done on a routine basis so that we avoid some of those situations.
If it's an historical building, how's the demolition of that part gonna work?
That is what was that, $64,000 question, whatever that show was way back when?
That sounds cheap now, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say, that's a drop in the bucket.
Some of those, it's just the outside. You can do anything you want to on the inside, but it's just, I don't know if that's the case here, but like the old bank building, we couldn't do much to the outside without getting all kinds of approvals, but the inside we could do anything.
Oh, okay.
We got a $29 million safety and security issue.
Pretty much it.
And with that building in particular, I'd have to go back and I don't know, still might be in county records or not, but a portion of the south, west, and even north side of the building had major additions added to it. I mean, there's a sally port and front entryway, and I don't know how they would have gotten that through or past the historic society on some of those
They
things.
might not have.
So I will say the only side that there was a water leak on when the weather was very cold was in January, a couple of weeks we had in January, is the only exposed side of the building we've got left, and it's the east side of the building, and that's where the pipe froze. So I'm guessing the insulation on the east side of the building is not as good as what they did when they did the other three sides with the new construction on it.
I guess I've got a question on what we call the new part of the jail, because
Yes.
I'm old enough to remember. But what's the normal lifespan before you need to remodel something like this? It seems like that's a pretty short period.
2006 is actually, in my book, a pretty new facility.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's the hard part of this. That's why I said what I said when I first walked in, and it's kind of hard to come in and say there are things wrong with the building that you guys paid a lot of money for. And I don't know that there's a lot that you can say if a dorm style setting is necessary. I mean, it does fit that purpose. It just doesn't help Mark in terms of how he manages the inmate population that he has. So
It just seems like even when it first opened, just walking into that, there's a lot of dead space. I mean, I know you guys have since put in like the cubicles where people can do the paperwork and stuff, but there just seems like a lot of wasted space in that first area right there.
I would say my heartburn in that facility is the booking area does not flow the way I think a booking area should flow. But other than that, the idea of the kind of, and I'll use terms that if you don't recognize what I'm saying, I can explain it a little bit more in detail, but I call the radial legs of the demising walls, I call that hub and spoke. That's the best layout that's we have in terms of giving an officer the best views into a space and being able to oversee a larger group of people in the facility. And then we built the masonry right down to the door head, and we put the control room up high, and they can't even look into the day rooms. So there are
Where the
little,
booking is in that one, I don't know if you guys still use that office as an interview room, right on the other outside, do you, Mark?
It's, Lieutenant's office.
Oh, it's an office now, but I mean, prior to that, we used to interview suspects in there. I mean, you could be getting beat up in there, and nobody could see you.
yeah, there were just some little things, and, I have no idea what budget was. I have no idea what the direction to the architect was at the time, but there are things in there that I would say I would do differently if it was something I was working on. Other than that, I think that piece, near as I can tell, it's reasonably efficient from an energy standpoint. To answer your question, we call these 50-year buildings.
Okay.
And you've gotten your money's worth out of a couple of them.
Right, right.
The newer portion, obviously, we're just scratching the surface. We're about, 19 years in.
Well, if I remember right, I think Keith and I were both on this board during the construction. It wasn't with the design, or I wasn't.
Wasn't a design,
But,
I couldn't even tell you who.
we had some issues with the contractor blaming the architect for things not being right, and the architect blaming the contractor.
Well, and,
Welcome to my
somebody brought up
world,
that we
yeah.
didn't have a manager, a risk manager involved in that, and, you know, when you have an elected official who has no professional building
Mhm.
experience, overseeing a project like that was absolutely ridiculous.
You know, and it was, if I remember right, they came back, wanting more money, and we were pretty well tapped out, and we said, you guys figure this out. If it's between the architect and the contractor, it's on one of you guys, or both.
Yeah.
So if I remember right, that's kind of what we decided, because we didn't have any extra money
It's
anyway.
already been voted on.
Yeah,
I told them
Yeah.
we did.
yeah. So, yeah, it was, I think Sheriff Jensen was the construction manager, I guess, which,
And that's ridiculous.
and yeah,
I mean,
well, and I don't blame Jim at all, but
No, but for us to
Putting
spend
him in
that
that
much money
position
on something and
sometimes.
not have a
Yeah.
professional person
if it
involved.
would have been
But
putting
here
me
we
in
are,
that
this is where
position,
we
I'd
are
have had
now,
things messed
so.
up and.
And I will say, as somebody that came from a local school, when we were coming through that process, construction management was a very new thing in the mid-'80s. And for the most part, it was repelled by the design world, and obviously something that the construction world was hoping to achieve. And I think as time has gone on, we've kind of ironed through some of those issues. There's construction management at risk, there's construction management agency, two very, they're similar in the fact that you're dealing with another person sitting on the same side of the table as you, but the way they handle the subcontracts is very different. I would say that we work, for the most part, in a construction management at risk environment for most of the projects that we're doing nowadays. For one reason, and I think I don't know how you guys are doing your hospital, but I think it's probably very similar. These are very complicated projects in terms of low voltage and even electrical in these projects is very, very intense. We don't have med gas, we don't have some of the things, and we're not required by some of the health code things for certain things in terms of the water. We have to have water, obviously, but some of the things he was talking about, how they process their water through their chillers and boilers and stuff. We run rooftop units for the most part and hot water heaters. It's not quite the same, that we don't have the same physical plant needs. But the air in these things are very much like a hospital. I have to have a certain number of air changes an hour. And I think that hit home with a lot of people after COVID, that if I want to keep these places in better order and give Mark the ability to quarantine people and get them tested before they go into the larger body of people in this. And that's one of my concerns with these large day rooms that are just big dorms. Somebody gets in there with influenza, with COVID, with medically resistant tuberculosis, any number of things that we deal with, Ebola. I mean, I can remember when the Ebola thing was a big deal. You got one person in with a bunch of people at that point in time, and the spread could be terrible. That's why I think that idea of having some hard cells makes some sense. And then this was probably an economical way to get more beds needed for the county at the time.
Well, thank you.
Any other questions
ruining
for
our
him?
day.
Yeah.
Corey, could we get a couple more of these for our members that aren't here? And then you can throw on you, and Rita can come pick it up in Tammy's office.
I can send you an electronic version.
Okay.
Rena, are you going to the game today?
I am, thank you.
I'll get you a copy and bring it to you.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Okay, anything else on that? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next thing is kind of a hospital accounts receivable, accounts payable review, I guess is what this is. And so the first thing in your packet is my attempt at trying to figure out accounts receivable, what's the net, what are we bringing coming in and what are we spending to get that money going out? And so I've got January, February up here. I've got 97,000 and 154,000. And this is pretty close from what I can tell what we've done so far. So that's saying we need to keep doing what we're doing, although there's things like we've got a lockbox or 2 lock boxes that so far I've had 3 checks come into them. And so I'm trying to get those people to send the money somewhere else rather than to the lockbox. We don't really need that and whatever, but we'll try to, I don't know, I'll continue this on, but this is kind of a best guess. And the other thing I was trying to figure out is that, well, just for curiosity, Al, how much was owed us? Well, the more I get into this, the more I learn and the more confused I get. But over there on the right side, there was $159,270 or $159 million that we were owed. Well, I found out yesterday that part of the set off and the bad debt are some of the same invoices, so those are mixed. And now whether some of the other are mixed too, I wasn't getting a good reading on that. So I don't know how to
Clarify this.
clarify that right now. But I think that's kind of all a moot point. It's when does it cost us more than it is to get it in? So that's kind of where that is. And so then the next colored pages there are what was given to me in, I'll call it accounts payable, on what do we owe that's out there. And the yellow is accounts receivable stuff that I'm putting back against the first page. And then the green is the accounts payable. The red there is what I've given to Peter to work on, or what he was already working on, actually most of those.
Okay.
And then I'm just kind of winding my way through the rest of them there. The only thing on here I forgot, which was my pay. I gave you guys the timesheet, but I forgot to put it on here to get paid. So before we get out of here, I'd like a motion on that, but, or we can wait till next month. But this kind of, most of these in the yellow are overpayments. To the best of my knowledge, there's some bigger ones in there that I'm having Stormont Vale do a little bit more research on to make sure that they are overpayments. And some of the smaller ones, US Treasury for $37.86. I don't know, but I'm just paying them and get it off the works, you know. But that's kind of where we're standing. That United Healthcare, I'm trying to left messages, trying to get some more information on that, and we'll get through that because there was a big one on that. And actually, on the very first one, the all medical staffing at 73,000, I'm actually giving that to Laura at Stormont Vale to go back. She gave it to me saying, hey, these are ones you need to pay. But I gave it back to her to say, hey, verify for sure that that's payable before I pay it.
Sure.
Because I don't have access to any of that.
Yeah,
stuff.
let me know you're really.
So,
Yeah.
but that's kind of in a nutshell, unless you got questions.
No, I like how you have this though. It's easy to read.
Super easy to read.
And I like a whole bunch of confusing paperwork.
Yeah, I'm trying to,
All of it is confusing.
Yeah, it's a definite learning curve for
I
me.
mean, I think you're on the right, these real small things,
Yeah.
you can't spend a lot of time on,
Yeah,
because it's not.
it's not even worth it, yeah. But no, I'm glad, because I think that was the concern of us and you guys, are we spending more money than we're bringing in? But right now, we're not.
Right.
We're doing what we should be doing.
Mhm.
And then, the hard question is, when it comes that time,
Right. What do we do? And so here's another question. This is more on the accounts payable side, but seemed like when I was downstairs here, there was a lot of storage room. Is there or not? Or is it pretty well taken up?
Downstairs?
Yeah.
Oh, I think it's pretty much taken up. And we're getting ready to expand the elections area.
What are we trying to store?
Yeah, what do you, I know.
Well, so we're paying UV&S or U something. Yeah, UV&S for storage in Hutchinson to store some old hospital records until they time out or permanently, I don't know. Right now, there's about 600 1 cubic foot boxes.
Mhm.
And so I was just curious if that got down to 300 cubic feet, would there be room to pull that out of there and save those costs and put them downstairs, or?
So there's some that are temperature controlled, so some we wouldn't be able to do it just because of the temperature control. The ones that aren't temperature controlled, potentially.
I would assume, are they storing these in the old salt mines?
I think so.
Underground.
I would assume so.
Yeah.
And we, even the county sends stuff to them.
Right.
I
That was-
think we find out how much room it's gonna take and where exactly it needs to be as far as temperature control, look and
So I
see.
suppose the temperature controlled are like more film and whatever,
I
because it
don't
wouldn't be
know for
paper.
sure. Laura just said that she marks the boxes for the ones that are temperature controlled that she sends. So I don't know how many of them are, how many of them are not, but I would make sure.
How long do we have to keep them? How long, like, is it?
Well, I think some are forever, but some are gonna be 7 years for audit purposes, but I don't know all the statute requirements for hospital records.
We can ask Peter.
Yeah, we can definitely look at that. 'Cause
But
that would be
that's just one
Yeah.
thing that I thought of as I
Yeah,
was
that could
going
be a
through
cost
here.
savings for sure, but I know it is pretty tight down there once everybody gets all their
Okay.
stuff. But, I mean, there might be, depending on how
Yeah.
much it is.
Any other
We have to
questions?
now that there's no EOC down
That there's no what?
there, the
Nothing.
emergency operations.
Oh,
Nothing. Oh, yeah.
That's gonna go in the new library.
so, if there's nothing else, just for my group, I'd ask for a $785.16 approval.
Unless you want to do it for nothing, Ken. We asked,
Getting gray hairs.
we asked Peter about that, so I thought it was only fair to ask
Right,
you to. I'll move to pay this, whatever that figure, 700 and.
$85.16.
Second.
Okay. Any other discussion from anybody? All those in favor say aye.
Bye.
Thank you. Motion carried.
Let the record show Tricia's vote doesn't count.
Yeah,
I just said aye, because I was agreeing.
that was Rena that said that.
She did too.
Yeah, okay.
We
I
both
said,
did.
but Tricia.
Oh.
Tricia-
It was that habit.
Okay, we'll keep wading through it and see where we go.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for
Thank
the
you.
hard work. Appreciate you guys. Think you guys are done, Rena?
Oh, is there something else on there?
Yes, yeah. Yep, I have that copy for you tonight. Whoa, hold on,
Wait.
hold on. Louisa gave me the angry eyes.
Oh, this was our,
Here's the resolution for the bylaw amendment that the commission needs to look at it, make sure they're good.
Yes, he has it.
this was the bylaw change?
The bylaws, remember,
Yeah.
there's a resolution for it
Okay.
that was created, and so.
I didn't bring that.
Oh.
Were different.
Okay, but I assume you have this? Okay. Basically, we were trying to mess with the terms of the office, or trying to align them better to how the county, when you meet,
Yes.
whatever, so we don't have a blank space in there. And so then this is a resolution to kind of get that
This is,
evened out, is that the word?
yeah, for the, so that'd be you guys to approve this?
We approved it last week.
Okay,
Do I hear a motion to approve resolution?
Bylaws,
This is the.
you need to approve the resolution,
Resolution 32524.
yes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Pose same sign, motion carried.
Thank you. Okay, we're adjourned.
Well, thanks.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Bye-bye. Bye, Rena.
Thank you.
I didn't know this was gonna be my full-time retirement program.
Never know sometimes.
Oh, Corey's back.
Taking
donations.
Do what now? Okay.
No, oh, three.
Sure.
One for the commission, one for us.
Hi, how are you, sir?
Good Monday.
Is there?
We haven't had anything for a day or two.
I actually picked up the mail this morning, and there was some Kansas restitution where somebody is, but I can't research those, I'm gonna be those because the person paying deputation is ordered by the court, saying whoever they injured. That's a
I get a lot of folks that knew they didn't, especially.
They're just working.
Yeah, I'm surprised they haven't purchased it.
I couldn't see that.
They got heard about there. Starting to get
Yeah. Okay.
They've been burning those Saturday neighbors. And then, I don't know if it was because yesterday was so good. Barely taking down.
Yeah, they're in the bathroom throwing up right now.
Yes.
Thank you. I have a pain right here. One way, and the storm's coming. So I'm totally like that. When I was a kid, it was never actually My husband
But what we're waiting on now is.
You get in here? No, I'm the outside one.
Watch it from this.
We're playing softball, out on the softball.
Oh, yeah.
There was nowhere to go, we just stand up against the grade school. I hope I didn't get it, you know? Hi, how are you?
Good. We ain't gonna touch that this morning. We're gonna have Laura doing the majority because she had at one point. Duties.
Yeah, they have questions. She doesn't know.
That's what she did. Still have access. She should know. She believes in that. She didn't do that.
Yeah, she made things so she's going on a cruise, right?
You ready?
I'm ready. Hello, commissioners. How's everybody?
Good.
I have a few things, nothing crazy. I'll just give you the numbers real quick. We had a couple, this week, we're on about an 89 average this week with the jail, so the numbers are down. We actually got some people shipped to DOC. Thankfully, there's been whatever transport issues as far as getting them there, but we have a few more that need to go, so we're trying to get those out of the jail because some of them are costing us quite a bit of money. 138 traffic stops this week, 35 tickets. We only had 3 accidents and we served about 106 court papers. So accident numbers are great because not to compare it to the city, but the overall amount of traffic we have in the city, they're having, I think they're up to 500 or 600 accidents this year already. So it's crazy. ACH, I mentioned that the last time I was going to get with Tammy about talking and discussing the ACH contract, which is our health contract for the jail. On the 15th, there was about 25 or 30 agencies in Kansas that got a termination letter from ACH saying, as of, I want to say it's April 15th, they've terminated all these people's contracts, and ours was scheduled to go into December. So we started scrambling and we looked at Turnkey. We looked at another company out of Topeka that Sedgwick County uses, and then we tried local, and absolutely none of them could compete to ACH. So we were trying to renegotiate with them. We signed a contract with them again, and it's about 150 or 160,000 less than the competitors. So we're hoping that they agree to it. There's been some rumor that they're trying to dissolve all the ACH contracts in Kansas, and I hope that's not the case because there's a bunch of sheriffs that still use them. But as of now, we've got a signed contract at their desk, just waiting to hear back. Because otherwise, what's that?
When do you think?
Well, that was sent out Friday, and I'm hoping today. I just asked the major in the hallway because I've been in meetings all morning. I've been for the 11, but he said he hopes to hear something today. But ultimately, the next closest competitor, we're talking $160,000, $170,000, just, and that's less coverage than we would be getting with ACH. So yeah, it's pretty bad. So it's kind of a monopoly. So, ACH is actually, I hope they agree to come back on board because that's going to be our best option. So the only problem with ACH that there was an issue with is we will lose our nurse that I mentioned before because they do require their nurses to be RNs. So, that's them, their nurse. So
When you say local, did you check with Ponza or?
he reached out to Stormont Vale.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and to see if they could do anything. The problem with them is they don't want to commit to like certain elements that we need because we need, at a minimum, ACH was going to cover 4 hours a week mental health. They were going to cover pharmacy up to that pool of about $22,000. And then they were going to provide 40 or 50 hours of coverage per week with RN services. And then there's an option for a certified nurse practitioner to come in as well for 4 hours a week. So there was an option there, but it's just finding people to do it and be interested in, because the pharmacy is one of the biggest ones because we get it through Diamond, but they're contacted through ACH. So pharmacy is it's crazy.
Have you seen this? And I know I just am still in shock over this. Have you seen this yet?
I saw the email this morning.
Okay.
I talked to Gilbert briefly, but I like I said, I had about 3 meetings already this morning, so I haven't reviewed it all.
Well, I think it's something that, it's pretty shocking. And, I know that Dan and I didn't get along on some things as far as how much the budget of the sheriff's department is. And I think if we're gonna be looking at something this expensive to do, that we need to possibly look at doing an operational audit of to see if there's what things, and not laying people off or whatever, but there's some things that probably we're not noticing that we should be doing that could be saving us money. And I would really like us to look at that
And that's
because
our goal. obviously.
Dan, you know, he added like over a dozen positions over there. Are they needed? I don't know. But if they aren't, we need to be looking at that.
And that's for sure. That's one of the things we discussed, and that's why we haven't filled some of those positions, because we're trying to, you know, determine.
Yep,
if
we're
gonna
still
need
charging
those.
the taxpayers for
Yeah, I
them,
understand.
so.
Can we
Yeah,
go
absolutely.
back? I'm sorry. Have you guys contacted Kanza?
I'd have to ask the major. I don't know if he has or not.
Okay. And the only reason I say Kanza, they have mental health, they have in-house, pharmaceutical, 4 hours for a doc and RN to come out.
The big thing is
Yeah.
that 40-hour nurse in the facility for that time frame. That's the big thing.
So,
You know, and again, that pharmacy thing's another one because, you know, like I mentioned before, there's a pool, but I mean, we have 1 or 2 people in jail right now that their medication alone is costing us about $5,000 to $8,000 a month. Just medication, that's it. So, yeah, I mean, he can reach
the only
out.
reason I bring them up because they already work with, the low income side of, you know, the public and stuff like that. So, I would consider reaching out to Danny Holiday
We'll
or
definitely
Danny
do that.
Holgren. I'm sorry.
What's that?
Danny Holgren.
Danny.
She's the director there.
Mhm.
Just sit down and see if you guys can have a meeting to kind of talk about what your needs are, what they possibly could provide. Overlap, I know we talked about the nurse thing, if it's something where the county may have to hire a nurse through the health department side and.
And that's one thing good about those outside agencies, the insurance coverage of theirs is under there.
Yeah,
So actually having a county, we'd be responsible, obviously, on the county side for
I mean,
liability issues.
yes, but
I would definitely, we're kind
I think
of crunching
this-
for time for that April deadline of.
yeah,
of
let's scratch
termination
the
of the contract.
surfaces to be ready in case something bad happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
We did have a 16-hour de-escalation training class come through. It was sponsored by the Department of Justice, put on by the Fort Hays State and the National De-escalation Training Center. It was actually really good training. Under Sheriff went, and multiple people from the department went. It was so good that we're actually going to send a trainer so that we've got an in-house trainer to do that de-escalation. And get everybody within the department that wasn't able to come to the actual training trained. It's a nationally recognized program, so it was really good. I did get a phone call or an email on the 21st. The high school reached out to us because there's some issues going on with coverage capabilities that the city has not been able to get them when it comes to SROs. So, and we've been in discussion with them a couple times in the past about providing SRO coverage at the high school. We're in that negotiation again, and it's looking like we're probably gonna have to provide some SROs, at least one, within the next month. And that'll end us out through the school year. There's compensation for it. They pay for a daily service. They pay hourly rate for the after hours games and events. But they're that short that they're needing SROs, and we've always been willing to provide them SROs, but we've gone up there, had conversations in the past, and then they just didn't need them. But I believe this time they're definitely gonna need us for at least to fill out the rest of the school year. Our plan is to have one person as the designated SRO and then have 2 alternates so that if somebody's sick or somebody's gone or is on vacation, we've got an alternate to fill that position. So we're still in negotiation and not really negotiation, just working out the details with them as far as getting somebody up there because they're gonna need that person soon. So, and the plan is probably April 1st to start that. So, yep. The other thing is I met with Odell today from the police department, and you know, as I promised, we're working on trying to mend some of those fences and bridges, and we're gonna do that. We're gonna do what we can to make sure that we're actually sitting down every other week, if not, you know, every week, and discussing things that are going on with the city, going on with the departments, you know, what we can do to make the community better. So it's definitely moving in the right direction.
Thank you.
You got anything for me? Excellent. Thank you, guys.
Corey, I'm sorry, I forgot, I jumped right over the drainage issue. I'm sorry.
No, not a big deal. It shouldn't take very long. This is concerning the easement needed for the bridge project on Old Milford Road. Still waiting on basically the city to, I guess, they're Brenton Stites with the cities trying to get information or I guess clearance through the Department of Interior so they can basically give us that easement for the bridge project. And Betsy, feel free to cut me off anytime. But what the deadline to get this property in the county's name is April 4th. We're coming down to the wire. So if they can produce the paperwork, I would like the board to go ahead and basically authorize the commission chair to sign said paperwork so we can try to get this expedited as quickly as possible. Because from what I've been told by KDOT, that if we don't have the property in the county's name by April 4th, we're gonna lose funding. So, and the dollar amount for the easement was $1,050. So, for the easement needed for the bridge, so.
All right, do I get a motion?
So-
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries.
Hopefully the next time I have good news. Thank you.
I hope so too.
You're on.
I've heard, or, yeah.